रंग चढ़े खुद का ही खुद पे बच्चों को तू ऐसे बढ़ा बचपन मना रे यारा बचपन मना
रोशन हो ये नन्हे दिए इन्हें तू रोज सजा बचपन मना रे यारा बचपन मना
जादू है ये जीने दे जरा बचपन मना रे यारा बचपन मना
गिरने दे बढ़ने दे उनको पास आए तो गले भी लगा
बचपन मना रे यारा बचपन मना
नई ये दुनिया नया आसमां
बच्चों को बचपन से ही सिखा
खेलते खेलते साथ निभा
ऐसे तो उनका जीवन सजा
ये बचपन है त्योहार हर दिन का ये पहचान ले और रोज मना बचपन मना रे यारा बचपन मना बचपन मना रे यारा बचपन मना बचपन मना रे यारा बचपन मना अरे अब तो मना ले यारा
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Bachpan Manao Masterclass. We're so happy to have you for this very special session on the hidden cost of childhood adversity. This is a special session. We also have sign language interpreters here with us today. In case you can hear well, please spotlight the speaker. We'll have the interpreter's spotlight from our end for everyone. So whether you're in education, community outreach, child development, we're confident that today's discussion will offer some insights that you can take back to your work. Before we dive in, I'd like to share briefly why this topic is so important for us at Bachpan Manao. As you know, our mission is to raise the awareness about the critical importance of the first 8 years of a child's life and what we as caring adults can do to ensure that every child has a thriving childhood. Now, early childhood experiences and play plays a critical role in shaping the individual's physical, emotional, cognitive development. However, children exposed to adverse childhood experiences such as neglect, abuse, and chronic stress often struggle with developmental delays, emotional regulation issues, long-term health consequences. One such critical outcome of adversity is failure to thrive, a condition where child's growth, both physical and psychological, is significantly hindered due to the environmental, emotional, and medical factors. So, for all of you today, this session will be great for understanding how childhood adversity impacts the development of children and what one can do in interventions that can foster resilience and healing. It's my pleasure here today to introduce a team from Dream a Dream to hold this space today. We have Vishal Talreja, the co-founder, and we have Tanya, a context facilitator and a mental health practitioner who are going to be leading the session. Over to you, Tanya.
Thank you, Ita. So for us to get started and for us to get into the space, there's a small check-in for all of us to engage with, get to know us, get to know each other and who all are there in this space. So if we could just have a slide there. So the invitation for the check-in for all of us would be 3 questions. If you could share and engage it in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourselves and raise your hand, and we could have your voice also heard in this space. So one is your name, absolutely, and the pronouns that you particularly use for yourself. If you're comfortable sharing, you can. If you're not comfortable sharing your pronouns, that's perfectly okay. And the third question is inviting us to use our creative hats and just imagine the way you're feeling right now. Because it's been a long day, we are all engaging somewhere in the middle of the evening. It's also getting hot in the northern parts of India, at least for the people who are joining from that space. So just check in with your own bodies and get a sense of what you're feeling right now. And if you were to show that using a food item and that stage that food item is at, what would it be? So you don't have to share the food. You just have to share. You don't have to share the emotion that you're feeling, but you have to share the food item that shows what you're feeling. For example, my name is Tanya. I use the pronouns she and her. And the way I'm feeling right now is like a bangan ka bharta, so brinjal. Just because it's at outer side, it seemed to be fully roasted, but at the inside there is some flavor, there is some taste that's there, and it exactly shows the way I'm feeling right now. So just next slide, please. So these are the prompts that you can see on the screen. And just take a moment to pause in and check in with yourself. And whosoever is comfortable sharing would love to hear your voice and some of your responses in the chat box. So we have a few responses coming up in the chat. I'll just verbalize them for some of us who can't access the chat. We have Vishal, pronouns are he and him. And Vishal is feeling like a hearty shadi ki biryani. Hita, she and her, is feeling like a popcorn popping. Radhika, she, joining from Bangalore, and she's feeling like a melted ice cream. Yeah, one thing I forgot to ask, if you could also share the place that you're joining from, it would be nice. We have responses coming in the chat box. Hema, feeling like a curd rice. Sham is feeling like a mango. Reshma is feeling like a scrambled egg. Akanksha is joining from Chhattisgarh, feeling like a shaken cold drink. Tejaswani from Delhi, she and her, feeling like a burnt aloo ki sabzi. Okay. Wow. So we have responses coming up in the chat box. Keep them coming. Just to also reiterate why we are checking into the space, it's so that we all get to see each other, get to also take a moment to pause with your own self and just notice what's going on with you and be present for this space, just to transition in. Thank you. So keep that coming throughout the duration of our session. If you feel like typing it down in the chat box, even while we are in the middle of the session, it will be great to hear from you. Thank you so much for sharing all the food items and in the way you guys are feeling. So I'm getting a sense of where we are at the moment and who all are here with us. Thank you. Over to you, Vishal.
Thank you, Tanya. Beautiful check-in. For people who are just joining in, we are checking in. So you can put in with the check-in responses on the chat, name, pronouns, place you're joining in from, and if the way you're feeling right now is a food item, what would that food item be? The next slide, please, Varun. Thank you. We started off with a beautiful video by the Bachpan Manao team, which is all about recognizing, accepting, and celebrating childhood. A key aspect of celebrating childhood also is understanding what are the complexities that children in our context in India face. So this session, just to set context for this session, is one focused on helping us understand what is adverse, what are adverse childhood experiences, and what is the impact when children experience adversity. It is for us to be able to recognize and understand and identify signs of failure to thrive in the children that we work with, engage with, or children around us. Also to kind of explore the idea of what is the role that we as adults can play in the lives of children who are growing up with adversity, and how can we support them and, as Hita mentioned, help them thrive. So this is what we're going to explore in the next 45 minutes. Tanya and me are going to present a few slides and then open it up for a discussion and questions and see where we end up at. So it is really an exploration. Keep sharing your reflections or questions on chat, and we'll keep capturing them so that we can address them towards the end of the session. Next slide, please. When we try to understand the challenges that children growing up in marginalization or poverty face, there are two lenses to the challenge. One lens, I think, is something that many of us are already aware of, which is the frantic pace of change. The world is changing very fast. The future is becoming increasingly complex and unknown. And the question we ask is our current education system preparing our children for this frantic pace of change? What are some of the changes that we're seeing around us? We're seeing changes of mobility, more and more people moving to bigger cities for jobs and livelihoods and quality of life. We're seeing more diversity around us, people coming from more diverse backgrounds, diverse identities. We're seeing more complexity around us, complexity in life choices, life decisions. There's a lot more unpredictability. When my father was thinking about what to do as a career, as a young man, he chose to be a lawyer, and he practiced being a lawyer all his life. He had one job, one career his entire life. I am 47, and I have had at least three different careers already. So today, when a child goes to school, we can't tell the child, study well, get good marks, go to university, study engineering or medical, and you'll be successful. That's no longer true because job markets are changing. Technological advancements are happening. There's increasing knowledge and skill gap. The world of work looks very different today. There's a study that was published recently which said that the majority of the jobs that our children are going to enter into in 10, 15 years from now have not yet been created. If that's the scenario, how can we even guide our children about what they should focus on? We can't. So children need a whole set of skills, attitudes, capacities to deal with this frantic pace of change. But there's another lens, which is the lens of childhood adversity. When children experience lack of food or nutrition, lack of love and care, neglect, in extreme cases, when they are exposed to abuse violence, maybe abandonment, rejection, in cases where children are orphaned, maybe displaced because of climate crisis. We increasingly hearing entire families and children being displaced because of floods or because of landslides, uh, because of just changes that are happening to our climate very rapidly. When children experience this in the early years of their life, the understanding is that they're experiencing adversity. And I'll unpack this a little bit more. So next slide, please. How do you understand adversity?
Vishal, just a second.
Tradition.
I'm very sorry. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you, Saurabh. Yeah. So how do we understand adversity and the impact of it? Now, if you look at the photograph here, all the children in the photograph are 8 years old. And as you can see, all of them are lower in height than what an 8-year-old should be at. Now, traditionally, this has just been looked at as lack of food and nutrition. But new research in brain sciences, in neurosciences in the last couple of decades has helped us understand that when children experience adversity, it delays their ability to achieve developmental milestones. One is physical milestones like height and weight. Second is emotional and mental milestones. And the result of that, which is caused by adversity, is what we call failure to thrive, or more commonly known as stunting. Failure to thrive describes a situation where the child does not grow as expected on a growth chart. That means they don't follow the same pattern of growth. And I'll explain this in the next slide, please. If you see the graph, this is a very rough graph. It is not statistically accurate, but it's a graph of how a growth chart looks like. Now, every child in the world, whether it's a child growing up in India or Nigeria or Germany or America, will have the same growth chart. In some countries, children will grow tall, like Germany. All the population of Germany, everyone is tall, so their growth chart will be around the tall child. In India, we are of average height, so our growth chart will be of an average height. And in some countries, maybe the growth chart is smaller, but the pattern of the growth chart is exactly the same. But if you look at the red dotted lines, the red dotted line is a child growing up with adversity who is not following the pattern, right? Which means somewhere the pattern gets broken and they start going into a different growth path. At Dream a Dream, we used to run a hockey program many years back, and we used to get kids from different care homes to come for hockey training sessions. And once in a while, we would invite international school kids to come and play hockey with our kids. And this became very evident when we would play these friendly matches, because you would have a 10-year-old from Dream a Dream, and you would have a 10-year-old from an international school in Bangalore, and the height and weight difference would be very, very visible. You could easily know which kid is coming from marginalization and adversity and which kid is coming from privilege. So that led us to start understanding and exploring what does this mean. Of course, all the hunger studies that the government of India has done, other organizations have done, has shown that India does have the largest population of stunted children globally. And again, like I said, this goes beyond just food and nutrition. It also includes deficits in emotional and mental development. Next slide, please. Now, what happens when children fail to thrive? When children fail to thrive, they have a whole basket of problems. But let's kind of explore how this looks like. Now, if any of you have ever spent time in a care home for orphaned or abandoned children, We used to do that very early in our journey when we used to go into a care home and children had been informed by the caretaker that a bunch of volunteers are coming. They're going to take you out to a picnic. So children are all excited, happy, they're dressed in the best clothes they have. As soon as we would walk in, complete strangers to them, these children would come running up to us and jump on us. They'll hug us, they'll tug at our shirt, they'll tug at our hair, ask us our name, and very excitedly ask us, where are we taking them today? Now, we came away feeling that these children are so friendly and happy, and it's amazing to work with these children. But imagine a scenario if I came to your house for the first time as a stranger and you had a 10-year-old kid. Do you think your 10-year-old kid will come running up to me and jump on me and hug me immediately, even if I had a box of chocolates with me? They probably won't. They will hide behind you. They will peek out, look sideways, look at some indication from you that they can trust me. And when you encourage them to come forward and say hello, they will say a quick hello and run away again. Now, that's healthy behavior. That's what we expect from every child, that they're able to keep boundaries of safety and protection. But children in care homes who have probably been orphaned or abandoned or haven't learned those boundaries end up making relationships very quickly. And if that is not addressed, then imagine at the age of 16, 18, 20, when they're out into the world of their own, it's very likely that they will end up in relationships that could be abusive or violent because they've not learned healthy relationship. Now, learning to form boundaries of safety and protection, learning to understand healthy boundaries in relationships are some of the developmental milestones that a child picks up in the first 10 years of their life. If they don't learn that, it ends up leading to a whole host of behavioral challenges later on in life. And these are some of the behavioral challenges that happen because of failure to thrive. So, for example, confused cognitive skills, information processing, memory. In classrooms, we have seen, and I'm sure you've seen it too, that someday you're teaching a new concept and you have a child who's learned it, who's picked it up, who's showing a lot of promise. A week later, you go back and revise the same topic and the child does not remember anything. And you're confused what happened. Children miss sensitive periods of development. We say between 1 to 5 years, if you introduce even 3 to 4 languages to a child, the child will pick it up because the brain is ready to pick up words, emotions, tones that come from language. The brain is like a sponge. If you ask me today to learn a new language like Sanskrit, German, I will struggle. But a child at the age of 3 or 4 might pick up 4 or 5 languages quickly because that's a sensitive period for language development. If that is missed, then when they enter school, now how does language development happen? Our earliest sense of language development happens is when people speak to us, when our mother was cradling us in her arms, speak to us. And that's how we start to associate language because we pick up tone, we pick up emotion, we pick up words. Now imagine in a slum community, if both the parents have gone to work and you are being taken care of by an 8, 9-year-old older sibling who themselves have not developed language, there's no one for you to speak with. There's no one who's speaking to you. So you don't pick up language development. Then at the age of 4, 5, you enter school and you have to learn this new language, maybe multiple new languages, but your brain is not ready to pick up language, to make associations, to pick up emotion and tone. So you start falling behind. So a whole host of challenges are seen in children, in child development, in early childhood, if we do not address adversity, if we do not help children catch up to developmental milestones that have been caused because of adversity. Next slide, please. I think, Tanya, you take over from here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, Dr. Renuka, can you spotlight yourself? Sorry. So when we are understanding these challenges, what we are also essentially saying that these children are left behind in many, many ways. And when they are left behind, if we were to go back to the first slide, second slide, Varun, can we just go back? This one. Yeah. So they're mostly unprepared for life. And when they are unprepared for life, they're always catching up for something that they should have achieved, say, by a particular age. And when they haven't been able to, and there is a pace that's keep going and that's not pausing for them, there are consequences that we just spoke about. Now, what is essential for us to understand here, coming back to the same slide, that the impact of these adversities that these young people coming from an adverse circumstances face, these impact and the consequences of these could be recoverable. Can we come back to the same slide? Yeah. So when we are saying that these consequences and these deficits, the impact could be recoverable, we are also saying that there is a need for something for these things, for these young people to then be able to thrive, because they are not thriving because of these consequences and adversities. And what would it need for them to be able to thrive? When we are saying that they need to thrive, which means that the impact of the adversities is something that needs to be reduced. And how it can be done is by providing conditions, opportunities for these young people to really be able to exercise some of the things that they may have missed, exercise some of their agency, exercise some of their choice, exercise who they are in that space. And this is what we are also calling life skills. So when we are saying that when these youth are empowered with life skills, now let's understand what these life skills are. Yeah. These life skills are not just a set of skills that one should have: emotional skills, relationship building, self-awareness. These life skills are most importantly these opportunities where they are actually exercising their voice, agency, choice, their way of being, recognizing who they are. And that's how, by exercising these, is when they are able to hold, develop these life skills. So the example that Vishal gave of this particular child in the hockey program, um, initially would come and hit other people around in the team. So when this child would hit other people around, the immediate first response would be to just take him out of the team. It's this child is creating a chaos. Let's get him out of the team. It'll be nice and peaceful. But then there's also the hockey trainer who was present, who said, no, and was aware of the background that this child is coming from, is then decided, then, let's make him accountable for this behavior, right? In a way that also helps him regulate himself and be a part of this. So it's not his fault. Maybe he doesn't know how to, yeah, I'll just pause for the interpreter switch. Yeah. So just for this child to be able to regulate their emotion, maybe they're struggling with regulating their emotion because they're coming from a lot of violent spaces. They're witnessing a lot of violence around it. There is a lot of emotion which has no space to be expressed, shared, or even regulated for that matter. So when this hockey trainer really ensured and told this child that you're going to come every morning and take 4 rounds of it. And also, after you've warmed up enough, I'm going to give you every ball, and you're going to throw that ball with your hockey to the goalpost. And these 20 balls should go in the goalpost, no matter what. So created a condition where this young person was able to then regulate his anger, which was so much there inside. And post that, it became very evident that this child's regulation of the emotion and that hitting was not there anymore. So, so what really happens in that process is something also very essential to understand, that when we are creating this opportunity, when we are creating this space, they are exercising their choice, their way of being. And most importantly, if we were to also look at it from a psychological lens, that there is a space that's being held, and I feel safe here. So my nervous system feels very safe. And I'm being seen by my hockey trainer. I'm being heard by my hockey trainer. This hockey trainer did not throw me out of the team. They really ensured that I'm seen, I'm heard, and immediately when that happened, it made me feel very safe. So if we were to move on to the second slide, the next one. Yeah. So now, what does this role demand from us? Now that we understand these adversities have severe impact, and children coming from adverse backgrounds are always catching up for the milestones that they were supposed to achieve way back. And when they're always catching up, there's something that they're always losing at the same time, simultaneously happening. But the good news is that they still can thrive. And how would that become possible? And the impact of the adversities are reversible, recoverable, is when our role comes in. So it's not just then about creating conditions. It's also then about facilitating those conditions through certain qualities that we as adults are accountable for. So this is what this slide is also talking about, that hockey trainer also regulated their emotion of feeling disappointed by this child's behavior, but really trusting him, respecting him, caring for him, providing that safety that I'm going to be here. I'm also going to come in the morning and show up so that, we can play in this field together, holding non-judgmental attitude and validating. And when we are saying validating, it's truly really seeing them and being authentically present. So it's not like this behavior is okay. This is not okay. You hitting other children is not okay. But here we are. Let's do this. Also showing empathy. So this straight line that you see of the adult in the slide is also telling us that there is a consistency. It's straight. Yeah. So I, as an adult, is not moving. I am just being consistent with these qualities with you. And this squiggly line that you see right next to it is basically demonstrating the unpredictable life of a child who is coming from an adverse background. At one time they're showing up, the other times they are not. At one time they're comprehending, the other time they are not. You may see them growing, but you may also see them getting into unhealthy relationships. You may see them showing up very effectively at one space, and the other space you're also getting to know that they're moving towards addiction, for example, or struggling with mental health concerns. So you see this squiggly, unpredictable, challenging life of the young people. But our role as an adult really demand for that. In that condition that we are creating, this is how we as adults then show up. It's basically these 3 C's: consistent, compassionate, and caring adult. Next slide, please. And how does that also happen? For any change to happen, it's also, again, very essential for us to know that we need to accept the young person or the child in front of us as who they are, is when the change will also happen. So this balance has to happen. So there's this child that I know of, is a child comes from a community, low income, resource background. And this child she would go to her home to after school every time, and her mother would serve her lunch. And there were days when her mother would ask, "Kaisa tha din?" And she would tell about the day. The next day, again, she would ask, "Kaisa tha din?" She would tell. The third day, the mother asked the same question. And she did not respond. And she did not respond for the next consecutive days. Is when something clicked with her mother and said, "Ki ab tum bata kyun nahi rahi ho ki kya hua? Ya kaisa tha din?" Is when she said that, "Because you're not listening to me with your body." Which also demonstrated, so the condition was that this mother would ask from the kitchen. She would be cooking while she's listening to her. So what I'm bringing up is that when we are also talking about accepting who they are and really accounting for the change that we want to see them having, we need to first accept them, and we need to accept them and start with deep listening. And this child said that, "You're just listening to me with your ear, but not with your body. I need to see you while I talk to you. Therefore, I'm not telling you what happened in the school in the last few days." So just that remark of that child, that you're not listening to me with your body, really struck this mother, and she came up and reflected on it with me, saying, "Aisa hua." And another thing that we could not do, which is also very important, is that not perpetuate the impact of the adversities that they are already facing. So if the impact is that low self-worth, low self-esteem, feeling abandoned, or struggling with relationships, the worst thing that we can do is to reinforce that by having them to kick them out of the hockey team, or by having them to sit on the last bench because they are not paying attention in the classroom. So it is the last thing that we should be doing, which is perpetuating or reinforcing the impact of their adversities. So just pausing in here, and if we can also have the next slide. So the pause right now is for you. By now, we are hoping that you have somebody in mind that you're thinking of. Yeah, it could be your own child. It could be child from your program. It could be your own self as a child. It could be anybody. So a young person that you have in mind doesn't necessarily have to be from the adverse backgrounds, but it makes more concrete sense when we have it. Even if we don't, we also believe that adversities, irrespective, are there. It becomes more complex when there are social adversities like poverty and malnutrition comes in. It becomes more complex. So just inviting you to imagine one child, yeah, a young person that you have already been thinking of, maybe, and just see them from this lens that we just talked about, which is the adverse childhood experiences and failure to thrive lens, that why they thrive. And just maybe ask, what would they truly need from you as an adult, or from you as a regulated individual, for them to be able to overcome the impacts of the adversities that they may have faced or may be facing. Yeah, so हम एक वो बच्चा, वो young person को दिमाग में रखते हुए उनको इस लेंस में बिठाकर उनकी जिंदगी को समझने की कोशिश करते हुए एक सवाल अपने मन में उनसे ये पूछेंगे कि वो क्या चाहते हैं मुझसे, ताकि वो थ्राइव कर पाए. So I already see the responses coming in, which is quality time and attention. Great. So if we move to the next slide. So just take a moment and share that one thing that they need from you. We have reliability in the chat, a loving hug, attentive listening, acceptance, unconditional support, conscious listening, validating, accepting true responses, respect, in-depth understanding of them, of who they are, acceptance, to be present there with our mind, heart, and body, safe space, respect. Curiosity to ask more questions. Be a child with them. Acknowledgement. Compassion. It's great to see these coming. So keep them coming, listening, understanding. Want to know what they actually want. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Praveena. It's always a good question to sit with. What do they actually need from me? And the answer that you may get intuitively is a gift for us as an adult. Easy to forgive, empathy, safe space, support. Yeah, so keep that coming while you conceptualize this concept itself, again, from the young person that you have in mind and from the programs that you are doing. Just opening this space for the last 15 minutes for questions if there are any. So we'll now have questions. We can stop sharing the screen. Hold on. We can have the space for questions. Feel free to unmute yourself or type your questions in the chat if you have any.
Yeah, I can get us started. I think when Vishal was earlier speaking, something that really stuck with me, and if you could speak about this a bit more, in the early years, there's a lot of, like you said, choice making and preference sharing, and that kind of tussle that happens as children in their toddler years, right? A lot of back and forth and negotiation and all of that kind of happens. And in the absence or in a situation of adversity, that kind of gets snubbed, right? I was very curious to hear more. What are those various facets that children would typically kind of um, engage in and do naturally, which then you need to nurture later in order to overcome the adversity?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rita. So let me give it to you through another example. So growing up, we see it as developmental blocks, right? So let's assume uh, exploration, being comfortable with becoming independent, right? So you'll never see a child who's in a cradle suddenly jump up and start running. They each of they go through each developmental stage. So they will learn to crawl, they will learn to stand up, they will learn to walk, they will learn to run. Each of those are developmental stages. Now, how does it show up? When a child learns to crawl, they will first crawl in a room that is familiar to them, where there is an adult that they feel safe with, maybe a parent, right? And then as they feel more and more safe, they might explore a bit further, maybe go to a far corner of the room. As they feel more safe and bold, they maybe crawl out of the room. Now, when they go out of the room into a new space, it's an unfamiliar space. What's happening to the body? The body takes on more anxiety because now there's fear of the unknown. What will the child do? When the fear catches up, the child will crawl back to the familiarity of the old room. Maybe they'll start crying. And then there's a mother or a parent who picks them up and hugs them. And when that happens, the child learns to calm down. The nervous system calms down. The child breathes normally again. So now what have they learned? They've learned it's all right to go explore. And when I feel fear, I can come back and there's always someone who will make me feel safe and take care of me. Right? Now, this gives them the confidence to go and explore more. Now, as they get older, they're going out of the house, playing with friends. As they get older, they're going to school. They're in an unfamiliar environment for 6 hours in a day with unfamiliar people, right? That's how confidence builds around becoming independent. But if you look at a child maybe growing up in a slum, maybe staying in a one-room home. Now, both the parents have gone out to work. The child is left in the care of an older sibling who does not understand this. The child has learned to crawl. They crawl out of the home and they're not going to another room. When they crawl out of the room they're familiar with, they've actually crawled out of their home. They're on the street. Anxiety has gone up. Fear has gone up. They crawl back in. But the older sibling does not know how to manage this emotion, how to help calm them down. Or sometimes even if there's a parent, if the parent is dealing with their own stresses, what will the parent do? The parent will pull the child, shout at them and say, sit here, don't trouble me, maybe hit them. Now, what has the body picked up? That it's not all right to explore. It's not all right to go out on my own. Now, that's where the development of the child gets stopped. So then every opportunity that the child gets in later years to explore, to become independent, to try new things, this fear will grip them. And they go back to the stage where this collapse had happened. So then decision making becomes a challenge. Making choices becomes a challenge. Being able to go for a job interview becomes a challenge because everything causes anxiety. Anything new, anything unknown, anything unfamiliar starts causing anxiety, and they don't know why it's happening. They don't know what they can do about it. So understanding that lens in the early childhood and being able to address that, like Tanya mentioned, by having an adult who can be that rock solid straight line, by having people around them, even if it's not the parent, but maybe a community member, a teacher, an aunt or an uncle, some adult in the ecosystem who's able to help the child go through the ups and downs of growing up through that rock solid straight line of care, empathy, non-judgmental approach is what will help the child catch up to development. Now, the good news is, as Tanya mentioned, that these deficits can be recovered. Now, again, the research in brain sciences tells us that the next big spurt in brain development happens during the adolescent years, between 13 to 18. So if there are ways that through interventions in school, through a caring teacher, through after-school programs, through social emotional learning programs, life skills programs, through just joy and play in childhood that can be brought in the school or outside of school. If those can be brought in, the child will learn to be safe again. The child will learn to build confidence again. The child can learn to explore again and catch up to those deficits and catch up to all their developmental milestones.
Thank you so much, Vishal. That example really brought it to life, truly. We have another question in the chat. Supriya, in case you want to unmute yourself and ask the question. Otherwise, happy to follow
Yeah,
up.
sure. Hey, hi, Vishal. So my question is, can we discuss the hidden cost of having to mature too quickly or take on adult responsibilities as a child?
Yeah, sure. Tanya, do you want to take that, or should I take it?
Sure. I can just take it up and then maybe you can add, Vishal, if there's something that you want to bring to light. Dr. Renuka, you want to switch? Just checking. Okay.
No, please carry on.
So let's also understand that adult-like behaviors are also coping mechanisms for these young people who are coming from adversities. A lot of these responses, like taking on responsibilities, being like an adult, especially in India, is also very celebrated, right? Any child who would respond like an adult is literally in India, from what I've heard from parents, that is too mature, a very sorted child. They haven't troubled us ever. Kind of responses which are also celebrated. But what's important for us to understand that the cost is that their own developmental needs are compromised. So if it's showing up in them also recognizing that their emotions are not important, them crying is invalid. We don't have the space for that. Them being messy, there's no space for that. Them being able to share their problem is a big problem, is the cost. So they are actually growing up losing on their own developmental needs. And it's in as an adult, it's manifesting in them. People pleasing could be possibly one of these things, but also not being able to recognize or even place their emotions in front, and always, fearing what would the reaction be. So always fearing being in that space of my emotions are not important, the others are. So that's how it might show up as. Does that answer your question, Supriya?
Yes, thank you.
Reshma, you want to go ahead and unmute and ask?
Yeah, hi. So I want to go back to that example, which I think one of you mentioned, where Tanya, I think you mentioned it, that the child told her mom that I'm not telling you what happened in school today because you're not listening with your body. I think that's huge in terms of how self-aware the child was and how safely she expressed it to her mom. I often find that when you have such children who express and who are so articulate or aware, that's a good thing, but the world around them does not really receive that, because many of the times people think they almost invalidate what the child says. Are you making a big deal about everything? We're not used to, as adults, taking correction from children. And ironical, because children are so honest and they're able to notice subtle things, and that, I feel, is the biggest barrier that comes in the way of us deeply or consciously listening to children, whether we are at home or whether we're at school or whether it's a grandparent, etc. And I'm just wondering, in your work and in your research, have you come across instances where people have been able to overcome their shadow side and really authentically listen to a child?
Yeah. Vishal, you want to take that?
Yeah, happy to. Thank you, Reshma. Such an important question, and such a difficult aspect of the adult-child relationship. And it is complex, and there are no easy answers. There are no silver bullets, right? And again, from the context of talking about celebrating childhood, it is also for us to reimagine the role of adults. So in our own work, we've worked extensively with teachers in classrooms. We work with about 85,000 teachers across the country now, mostly in public education systems. And what we have seen and learned is that when we help teachers reconnect to their own sense of creativity, to their own sense of empathy, to their own sense of humaneness, when teachers kind of are able to find safe spaces themselves in a training where they can express how they are feeling and their emotions are seen and heard and validated, and they experience how they feel when someone is listening to them, when someone is authentically listening to them, when someone is authentically validating them. They start seeing that if I bring that to the students in my classroom, I can see changes happening there. It takes a lot of practice. It takes unlearning a lot of our old belief systems. It takes being able to question some of our belief systems as an adult. Uh, and our trainings kind of offer that because our trainings are long term. Uh, Let me qualify that with an example that a teacher gave us. One of the teachers from a rural government school in Karnataka who went through a program. When we were doing the second training, he shared this with us. He said, I had this girl who was consistently coming late to my class. And every time she came late to class, I asked her to stand outside. And then I went through a training and I learned about childhood behavior and learned about listening and validation. So the next time I went to class and this girl landed up late in class, instead of asking her to step out of the class, I sat her down and I wanted to know why she came late to class. The girl was, of course, very scared and didn't believe that the teacher was actually asking. But after a bit of coaxing, the girl said, I get up very early in the morning. I'm helping my mother with household chores. I'm getting ready for school. And then I rush to school. And I never know when is the right time to get to school because we don't have a clock at home. So now imagine what the teacher was feeling in that moment. Because for months on end, this teacher was carrying this sense of judgment that this girl is not interested in education. She's not applying herself. She's not putting in the effort. She's not disciplined. Her parents are not committed. He had created a story about this girl, which was filled with judgments. And in this conversation, it just took one authentic conversation with this girl for the teacher to realize that this girl was actually making all efforts to be to school on time every single day. And it was just this one small piece that the family didn't have a clock at home that was causing trouble. And he told us that that day, I shifted my lens about how I look at every child in my classroom. And I said, whatever the reason, when I see a child with a certain behavior, I'm going to engage and first understand their side of the story before I create a judgment. So it's possible. It's possible for us as adults to shift our belief systems, to shift our judgments, to take a step back, to take a pause, to invite empathy into ourselves before we take decisions for children.
Thanks, Vishal. I think the stories really stick with us, and I think these are simple stories, but they really carry a very, very powerful message.
I know we're at time, Hita, so we'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Vishal, Tanya, for taking our time today. Our interpreters for being here and so actively kind of making this a more inclusive session. The entire audience, you all were incredibly engaging. If I may request you to share anything you liked in the comments, it would be great to know anything you liked about the session. Please do share. You can follow the Bachpan Manao channels for more updates, for more masterclasses. Tanya and Vishal, if you have any resources to share, they will send it over to the entire group here. If you'd like to connect with them, please do reach out. We're happy to connect you with Tanya and Vishal and the team at Dream a Dream. Yes, Supriya, I also wish it could have been longer. And we do hope to have more sessions with Vishal and Tanya here. So please do stay. We'll keep you posted. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll be here for a couple of minutes. Tanya, Vishal, if you can stay on while everyone leaves. Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for spending this time with us.
Thank you for the listening.
रंग चढ़े खुद का ही खुद पे बच्चों को तू ऐसे बढ़ा बचपन मना रे यारा बचपन मना
रोशन हो ये नन्हे दिए इन्हें तू रोज सजा बचपन मना रे यारा बचपन
If you don't
मना
mind pausing for a second,
Yeah,
we have
there's
one
a
question we'd like to take if Vishal and Tanya can.
Sure.
Yeah, Tithi Kumar has raised her hand. We are going to spotlight Tithi. Yeah. Okay, Tithi here. Can the interpreter see? Interpreter can see. Okay. So I have one question, actually two. So these kids, I have some of the educators, they are into phones all the time. How do we solve that issue? It's very difficult, you know. Did we understand the question? Understand? Okay. How to explain or how to solve this?
You want to take that, Vishal?
I don't know, honestly. I think what's important to accept is that technology is part of our lives now. Trying to control that for ourselves and our kids is only going to make it more difficult. But if there are ways we can channelize their interest in technology towards new learning, that's what's going to help them. So, for example,
Sorry, Vishal, could you please repeat the last sentence a little bit?
Yeah, I can.
After you said that controlling that would be difficult.
Yeah. If we can find ways to channelize their interest in technology towards learning, new learning, fuel their curiosity towards new learning.
That is true.
In our own program, we've seen that when young people have been introduced to technology, they have used technology to learn new skills like how to repair mobile phones, to how to learn to stitch, and become fashion designers, to learn photography skills, to also explore being influencers, social media influencers. So it's a whole new world that we don't, as adults, fully understand. But what we can do is constantly keep building young people's ability to make healthy choices as a life skill. So they can then choose for themselves if they want to use technology for consumption or technology for new learning.
Just to also quickly add, I think using technology is also a lot to do with distracting oneself, really numbing oneself to not feel things. So if there are a lot of emotions that I don't want to feel, sometimes we are too much engrossed in looking at screen a lot, mobile phones a lot. It's also numbing respond sometimes. So it's also important to recognize what does this child need? Do we need to see them more often, engage with them in a way that they feel more seen, they feel more heard, attended? So yeah.
Makes sense, makes sense. And there's a second thing. The second question. Okay. So these kids, these students, the teachers, um, the hearing teacher, actually, they are not very respectful of this teacher. They kind of sometimes are, yeah, think of this person as a nobody. How do we change that kind of a mentality? Because I think this age group is about 7 to 10. Hearing teacher, no respect, like outright disrespect, like won't listen, disobeying of this kid. And how do we think this kind of a behavior, I mean, this rudeness, if it can be changed
Um,
towards hearing teachers? Yeah.
Yeah. I think we'll have to understand the context a bit more. Very easy for me to listen to what you're saying and make a judgment against either the students or the teacher. But there has to be a deeper context. It could be related to skills. The teacher might not have the skills to engage with the students. Maybe the teacher is discriminating against the students because they come from a different caste or a different identity. Maybe the students are angry with the hearing teacher and they would rather prefer a teacher like them. So there could be many reasons for this complex relationship to exist. What is important is to create space where the teacher and the students can come together and be able to honestly share how they're feeling and why they're feeling the way they're feeling, from a lens of what can we do to make this relationship work for both. The judgments are easier to come by, but actually going into the core issue and trying to find solutions together is more difficult.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, Tithi. Thank you so much, Vishal, Tanya, for taking that. We're going to close now. Maybe Vishal and Tanya, you can just come back on the same link. Thank you, everyone, for joining this
Thank
evening.
you. Thank you for explaining.
Thank you,
for
Saurabh.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Saurabh.
Dr. Renuka. Thank you, Tithi. Have a great evening.
Do we leave or stay on the same link and come back? Yeah.
We can leave and come back.
Okay.